All right, like I said, I'm going to give my comments in English, then I'll give them in Spanish, and then we'll show some video. On Thursday, March 25th, 2026, at approximately 9:38 p.m., Northwest Division officers were en route to a domestic disturbance call, when multiple 911 callers reported hearing gunfire. There were a total of 5 calls, 2 calls from a nearby agency. As an officer was driving near Bonita Drive and Isabel Court, additional shots were fired. The officer observed the suspect, Alejandro Serrano, 113 of 93, firing a gun. The officer stopped, exited his patrol car, and gave multiple commands to drop the weapon. Serrano ignored the officer's commands, continued walking towards the officer, and began to raise his gun. The officer fired his gun multiple times, hitting Serrano multiple times. Officers immediately provided medical aid to Serrano until the Fort Worth Fire Department arrived and transported him to a local hospital. Alejandro Serrano is still receiving medical care and is in police custody. Detectives have learned that Serrano was unrelated to the initial domestic disturbance call. Serrano has been charged with aggravated assault of a public servant and deadly conduct. Serrano had fired approximately 30 rounds in the neighborhood. 2 handguns were discovered on his person, one of which was stolen. The officer involved has been with the department for 4 years and is assigned to the Northwest Patrol. The officer is on critical incident leave, which is routine during this type of incident. Detectives from the major case unit are continuing the investigation along with internal affairs. We recognize the seriousness of police shootings and are committed to transparent and thorough investigations, which is why we work closely with the Tarrant-County DA's office. The shooting is not only a reminder of the dangers police officers face, but also the dangers of illegal gunfire. Illegal gunfire puts lives at risk across our city. We urge residents to report gunfire immediately. Your calls for help officers respond quickly, prevent further violence, and keep our neighborhoods safe. Injury or loss of life is never our intended outcome. However, this individual's actions, placing the community at risk, my officer at risk, and failing to follow commands led to this outcome. Whatever reasoning this individual had for putting a neighborhood at risk, I don't know. But gunfire in our neighborhoods is not random, nor do we see it as celebratory. My men and women see it as a violent crime. Please think twice. Don't put yourselves or my officers at risk, as this could very well be the outcome. Switch over to Spanish now. El día jueves 25 de marzo de 2026, aproximadamente a las 9:38 p.m., oficiales de la División Northwest estaban en camino a un disturbio familiar cuando varias llamadas al 911 reportaron escuchando múltiples disparos. Mientras un oficial estaba manejando cerca de Bonita Drive y Isabel Court, más disparos se oyeron. Mi oficial observó el sospechoso, Alejandro Serrano, nacido el 13 de enero de 1923, quien disparaba una pistola. El oficial paró, salió de la patrulla y le dio varias órdenes para tirar la pistola. Serrano ignoró los órdenes del oficial, continuó caminando hacia el oficial y comenzó a levantar la pistola. Un oficial disparó su arma varias veces, impactando a Serrano varias veces. Los oficiales le dieron ayuda médica inmediatamente hasta que el departamento de bomberos de Fort Worth llegó y transportó a Serrano al hospital. Alejandro Serrano sigue recibiendo ayuda médica y está bajo custodia policial. Los detectives descubrieron que Serrano no estaba relacionado con la llamada inicial de disturbio familiar. Serrano enfrenta cargos de agresión agravada hacia un servidor público y conducta letal. Serrano disparó aproximadamente 30 veces en el vecindario, en la área. Y cuando estaba arrestado, él tenía 2 pistolas en su posesión, una que estaba robada. El oficial involucrado ha estado con el departamento por 4 años y está asignado a la patrulla de la área Northwest. El oficial se encuentra en pausa laboral debido a un incidente crítico, lo cual es una rutina en este tipo de incidente. Los detectives de la Unidad de Casos Mayores siguen con la investigación a la par con asuntos internos. Reconocemos la seriedad de los tiroteos policiales y estamos comprometidos a una investigación detallada y transparente. Es por eso que trabajamos cerca con la Fiscalía del Condado de Tarrant. Este tiroteo es un recordatorio que no solo los peligros que los oficiales se enfrenten, pero también el peligro que representa disparar pistolas ilegalmente. El disparar pistolas ilegalmente en nuestra ciudad pone muchas vidas en peligro. Le pido al público que reporten inmediatamente la actividad. Su llamada nos ayuda a responder rápidamente y prevenir más violencia, y también mantiene nuestras comunidades más seguras. Heridas o la pérdida de vida nunca es el resultado deseado. Sin embargo, las acciones de este individuo a poner la comunidad en peligro, mi oficial en peligro, ignorando los órdenes de tirar la pistola, fue lo que dictó este resultado. Desconozco la razón que habría tenido este individual para poner riesgo en un vecindario. Sin embargo, los disparos en nuestros barrios no son aleatorios, ni tampoco los consideramos un acto de celebración. Mis hombres y mujeres los ven como un delito violento. Por favor, piénselo 2 veces y no se pongan en riesgo a ustedes mismos ni a mis oficiales, ya que este podría ser muy probablemente el desenlace.
10 shots fired from the officer. Do we know about how many were was the suspect struck by?
He was struck. He was struck multiple times.
We don't have an exact number.
Well, I'm not going to put that out. He was struck multiple times.
And are you publicly sharing the name of the officer that was involved?
We'll work on that through the process through PIOs.
In the original press release, it was said that this suspect received immediate care. It is a little hard to see from the video, but perhaps you can explain when, especially on the home surveillance video that we first got, it seems like officer flips him over, are handcuffs placed on him, and then he's given medical aid, because it doesn't seem immediate.
So when someone has a firearm, the officer was in defense in their life, it's immediate in our terms because the suspect doesn't get handcuffed. What you did not see in this case is the suspect had a second firearm that was holstered, which is what the importance is of officers ensuring that the individual is handcuffed. So that is common practice. You are handcuffed first and then given medical aid. So for us, it's immediate because we have to ensure that our officers are safe, the rest of the community is safe, and in this case, precisely was the reason why you handcuff first, because this individual, the firearm he shot was not the only firearm that was on his person, which is the reason why he was taken into custody before medical aid is able to be given. It's got to be given safely, and giving medical aid to an unsecured suspect who had just shown a propensity for violence is not smart.
So just to be clear, the first calls came in for disturbance, right? And none of the calls specified that there was a man in the middle of the street, arm firing like that?
No, there were calls. The initial call that the officers were responding to is a domestic call. This individual was unrelated to that call, but there were calls that were coming into dispatch regarding an individual such as this in the area shooting randomly.
What do we know about his condition now? You mentioned that he's still in the hospital. Is he critical? Is he stable?
He's stable.
He's stable. And in our, just talking to community members, they had identified this guy as someone who had been a nuisance before. Are you able to shed any light on his past, and if y'all had responded or had any interaction with this individual?
We have had interactions with him before, and so he's definitely, he was known to us. Obviously, what we didn't know at the time, but he was known to law enforcement.
Algo que los vecinos me platicaron era que el individuo tiene problemas mentales. ¿Es por la razón que ustedes tienen historial con él?
Eso es lo que tenemos también. Tenemos que tenía problemas mental él. No es una razón hacer lo que estaba haciendo, pero sí, teníamos llamadas con él, con cosas mental que tenía él.
¿Y la llamada inicial no era nada que ver con él?
La llamada inicial no tenía nada que ver con él, pero cuando los oficiales estaban yendo a la llamada que iban a ir, las llamadas estaban midiendo la ciudad de esta persona disparando en la calle.
¿Pero en la misma calle o en otra calle, perdón?
Ahí en la área.
¿Qué le
Were you able to shed some light on the English?
I'm sorry.
The history of mental health one, again in English, please.
He has a history of mental health issues, yes.
Jefe, ¿qué puedes decir? Muchas veces las personas nos escriben a nosotros de la situación con los disparos al aire. ¿Puedes hablar de que precisamente aquí lo vimos, él estaba en el medio de la calle, poniendo las vidas en riesgo, pero para las personas que quizá todavía no tienen, que deciden no llamar, porque a menos de que sea algo contundente, la policía pues no lo atiende como una prioridad de que están disparando al aire? ¿Cambia eso un poco después de esto que estamos viendo? ¿O qué puedes decir?
Y como dije anterior, esto es un problema que no solamente está aquí en Fort Worth, está durante aquí en todas las ciudades que tenemos aquí, que la gente está disparando en las calles así. Pero sí, esto es una situación que piensen dos veces, porque lo que pasa si tengo oficiales que están ahí, esto no es celebratorio para nosotros. No es nada celebratorio para nosotros. Nosotros vamos a bregar con esto como es un crimen violento. Y le pido a la comunidad que no se pongan en esta situación, que no me pongan mis oficiales en esta situación, porque esto misma cosa podría pasar otra vez. No quiero que esto pase en nuestra ciudad. Pero estos casos específicamente, si vamos a llegar aquí al 4 de julio, que sabemos que el 4 de julio, cuando en esa temporada, hay muchas llamadas de así, ¿verdad? Y este es un mensaje que queremos dar a nuestra comunidad, que no se riegan a ellos, ni a mis oficiales, ni el resto de la comunidad haciendo cosas así.
Y una última pregunta, perdón. El video el último que dice Witness Video, esa familia que presenció eso tan impactante, ¿se le ofrece algún tipo de ayuda a través de la ciudad? No sé, porque es algo tan traumático eso.
A nosotros nos pueden llamar, podemos darle información a donde pueden encontrar ayuda, pero también es bien importante para nosotros el video que tenemos ahora en las calles. Es bien importante para nosotros, para asegurar la comunidad, el vecindario. También nos ayuda a nosotros a poder arrestar a estos sospechosos que están ahí en el barrio.
Chief, we're about a week out from this happening, and you mentioned that there's still no word on why he was even shooting. Is he not being forthcoming with information?
This shooting, I think, happened on Thursday,
Yeah.
right? It's Monday.
Yeah.
It hasn't been a week. And so, no, I mean, he's in the hospital right now, still getting care. And so, certainly that's something that we would like to have as closure. But again, oftentimes in this situation, regardless what the individual ends up telling us, may not make sense as to why he was doing that, as you all see in the streets.
¿Tiene historia con pistolas anteriormente que ustedes han trabajado casos?
Con él, no tengo esa información ahora.
He's conscious, he's talking, or at the hospital, is he conscious?
Está estable. No sé si está hablando ahora, pero está estable. Anything else? Okay, thank you.